Good morning, good morning, good morning. Very weird to be doing this because I haven't done it for so long from my own craft room. Don't know if anybody will join because I didn't advertise that I was doing this, but I did just want to jump on and do a demonstration of the Eternal Heart Quilling Kit just so that I know I've got it done. So if any of you do join, please do say hi. I don't know if I'll be able to see names. I can't remember how it works. It's been so long since I've done this. So, and I'm not expecting anybody to join because, like I say, I didn't advertise it, but I do just want to talk through getting the Eternal Heart sort of together, and the main thing being that outlining, which people find so difficult. So we're going to have a look at that. I'm hoping the sound's okay, and I'm also hoping that you can see the overhead pretty well so that you can see what I'm doing, and we'll talk it through. So we'll see how it goes, and we can try and work it out. I feel nervous, it's so silly because I'm on my own, but we'll see how it goes. Right, when we're quilling, obviously the one thing that we need to do most of all is manipulate that paper, and that just means, let me make sure I've got my hand in vision, running it through your fingers. So if we just run it through, it means it softens. It's like butter. If you think of when you're making biscuits or a cake and you start to soften that butter up, we're doing the same thing with our papers. We're just manipulating it. As soon as you've broken some of those fibers, it's going to be much easier for you to then sort of get it into the shapes that you want it to be. So that's pretty important as part of the process. So the best thing that you can do is just sit and just run it through. If you're watching something, it's quite nice to just sit and do the little bits of business. Now, as I said, when I was on Hobby Maker, I always like to use a needle tool when I'm quilling. There are times when using a slotted tool are really important. That tends to come with those very tight coils, and we'll be getting into tight coils possibly in the next release, the next launch, and we'll start to look at making domes and different parts to create different visual aesthetics when we're creating with quilling. But for now, I'm just going to be using my needle tool. So I'm just going to go through. I'm just going to make sure everything's set up here. I think it is. And if anybody, it does say there's some people watching. If you're watching, can you just bob a little comment, and so I can just see if you can hear me okay? Anyway, so once I've got this here, I'm going to take the piece of paper and I'm just going to put my thumb on my needle. So I'm holding that paper in place. Once I've got that, I can start to turn it and I can start to roll that piece of paper around, and that's going to create my main coils. And this is something that we're going to come to as the demonstration goes through, but the manipulation of that paper allows your coils to sit really pretty, to be able to manipulate and to use, and that's what we'll use as we're going through the techniques. But the main thing, which is your outlining, this is where people get really stuck. So I just want to go through it because it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and I just wanted to make it easier for you all. So I'm just going to run that through. Again, you're just always running it through your hand just to make sure you can bend it and shape it, and it's going to give you a lot, sort of, just a lot of, it's an easier ride, let's put it that way. I hope you're all okay, because I know there's some people there. Let's just go through. So we're just going to use our needle tool on the glue and just pull this round in the direction of the artwork on that outline. Now I'm going for quite a way around. I'm not going to worry about the glue drying. It takes 40 seconds approximately for your glue to be at its stickiest. So you have got this kind of leeway, and I'm just going to run this through. So you're using this tiny amount. We don't need a lot of glue because glue is sticky. We're just going to run it through to the end. Feels very weird. Good morning, Jill Humphrey. How you doing, lovely lady? Thank you for commenting, because it makes it easier when I can see. Can you hear okay, Jill? Because I don't know. I haven't tested my sound, and my main microphone is not my friend this morning. So now that I've got that, I'm just going to use my tweezers, and my tweezers are always going to be my best friend. If I try doing this with my hands, I'm going to bend the paper in ways I don't want it to bend. I'm going to start creasing the paper. None of that is ideal. So I'm just going to come around to this side, move your paper. Try not to move your wrist around to try and fit it, because that is painful. I'm just going to sit that on top. I hope you can see with my fat fingers. There you go. Can you see? And it's just upright. So now that I've got that, and that will have taken, I can let it go, and I can start to then pull this paper around. Now this would be for anything. So if I wanted to do a human face, if I wanted to do a letter, hey Jill, thank you for that. You can do anything at all using this technique when we're quilling. So this could be for paper art. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, just quilling. It's just when you're outlining something in paper. So if you think of this in terms of, let's say, a fine liner, you're doing exactly the same thing. You're just outlining. Now I've got a stopping point here where I need it to end because the rest of my heart comes through. So I need to get rid of that edge. So the way that I'm going to do that is take my scissors and I hold them absolutely straight towards my paper. I'm just going to find that end point and I'm just going to create a snip, and that is going to allow that to sit. Now, obviously, you need it to dry. If you start trying to manipulate it too much now and move it around, it will shift like that. So we just leave it alone. Now you can press onto it just slightly on the top. Remember, paper's quite strong, so it can take a little bit of pushing and pulling. So if I do that, that's now firmly seated and it's sitting. So if I raise that, hopefully you'll be able to see, I've now got the outline seated there. Does that make sense? So hopefully you can all get the gist from that. Now, I'm obviously not going to do the whole heart this morning because it takes a little bit of a while to do that. I think any of you have got the patience for it. Although if you've got any questions, please do put them down. I should have a slurp of my coffee. Days would not be days without coffee. So what I'll do the inside of this and we'll start putting some coloured coils in and some loops in so you know where you're going with that as well. I know lots of you have had a go with this already. Should I have done a tutorial before now? Yes. Was I organised enough to do it? No. Is that my fault? Yeah. Do I apologise? Obviously. I'm not an organised human. Right, I'm going to go through with this. And I'm just following that line around. Yeah, I feel like I practice doing lives. Obviously, I used to do them a lot with carnation, and I haven't done any for quite a while. I'll pop that there. Take my edge. Always your tweezers. If you can do it with your tweezers. Hey, Sharon Tidmus, how you doing? Hey, Karen Owens, how you doing? Lovely to see you all. It's weird doing it for me. Like, it feels, do you know what it feels like? It feels like I'm free to say what I want and do what I want, which is a dangerous place for me to be because I have no filter. Right, let's just turn this around. I want to show you guys something, but I don't know where it is. I'll do it on the next live. I'm going to come live quite a lot. I think what I'm going to do is try and come live about 3 times a week, exploring different crafts and doing different things. Because I think it's quite exciting to try different things. But I wanted to show you my little hack that I've done. I'll show you it next time, and then you can do it at home. It's easy, cheap, and it will be a little lifesaver for you all. Let's turn this round. So all I'm doing is pushing down to that line. So I'm following it with a piece of paper and pushing. It's a bit like colour by numbers. Thanks, Jill Humphrey. I feel like a beautiful human this morning. I didn't sleep very well last night at all, and I got up at 2 in the morning and I just paced for about 2 hours, went back to sleep at 4 and then overslept, which wasn't very useful, to be fair. But that is the joy of my brain. So again, hold your scissors. I'm not helping, am I? So instead of having it that way, hold your scissors flat, absolutely flat down. Because if you've got them, what's the word I'm looking for? Somebody help me out. Not perpendicular. But if I've got them sort of laid flat this way, I can pinch. Now, I got to say, nothing to do with me and nothing to do with anything that I'm selling. I'm not selling anything here. I'm not doing anything. Cutter bees are going to be a lifesaver for you. See if Hobbymaker have got any left. I know I've tried to get Liam to get some more in. Cutter bees are really important scissors, and I will just say it's because of the pointed tip. Everybody uses them when they know what they are because they're so sharp and they're so pointed, and you've got this tiny little, if you think in terms of a beak, it's got this tiny little curvature on them, and they absolutely give you precision, and they're the most precise scissors I've ever used. So I always use them for quilling, especially when we're doing those snips down. What I don't want to do is tear out my bottom piece of paper. So some of the questions that I've had asked, I don't know if that was a cat. I think there's a cat. Some of the questions that I've had asked, and I'll try and answer them now because I'm here, is what sort of cardstock do you want to use on the bottom? What are we quilling onto? So you've used your stamp, you've stamped it out. What are you stamping it onto? The answer is it's really up to you. My advice, if it's me that's doing it, I'm going to go in with something heavyweight, a 400 GSM, 300 GSM, something along those lines. Something lighter will work. And AC cardstock's great for it. What we're trying to do is to stop it warping. So my whole thing when I go on about glue being sticky, you're adding a fluid into your paper. So when we add a fluid, it's going to make it sort of warp. And yes, sometimes that can be minor. However, when we're quilling, it's more pronounced. And the reason it's more pronounced, of course, is that we're doing it in lots of various different surface areas. As the glue dries and that water is evaporating, it tightens towards the paper and the paper kind of pulls the fibers of the paper below it up. So you get these kind of bubbles, these wells. Morning, Linda Wilson. How you doing, lovely lady? So you get these kind of, I want to say sort of bumps almost where it is, and it gets quite pronounced. Now, the reason it becomes a problem is if I try and frame it, or if I try and put it onto a card, the front of a card, for instance, this piece of paper isn't going to sit flat. So you want it to be as thick as possible. Now, you can get around it. There are ways and means. You can spray some cardstock or some paper onto some grey board. So you've got this really solid base. That really helps. One of the things I love to use, and maybe we'll do it next time, is foam board. So you have like your foam there. You know what I mean? It's like a piece of, it's almost shiny. Like a piece of almost plastic paper, then foam, then plastic paper, and it's a foam board, and it's really useful for quilling. It never yields, and that's what you're looking for. You don't want that paper to yield to what you're doing. You want it to stay flat. So you can do it that way. Alternatively, take a few pieces of paper, a few pieces of cardstock as thick as you can, spray adhesive them together so you've got a nice solid base. That'll stop any kind of bending. Or your final is to frame it first, to mount it first. So buy a mount and stick your mount over the area that you're going to be quilling on, and then quill. That will keep those edges straight. It means there's no yielding point. But glue, you know, I'll say this again and again and again, when you're using glue, you need to use as little as possible. And I will go to my grave saying it. It's just really important. So I'm just going to do that little corner that we've got done there, and we're going to do some coils and we're going to do some loops, and then I'll let you all go. But it's just to give you an idea, because obviously when you're on Hobby Maker, it's all piecemeal. Like you can't always do a full demonstration of stuff. So if I can, you know, give you as much advice as I can while I'm here, please feel free to ask questions, use and abuse me while I'm around. Quilling strips, don't waste your quilling strips. So if I've got, like, I just finished outlining that piece and I've still got a little bit left, so I'm going to use it because why would I waste it? So I always like to take a color and then a white, and I always place the two together. Now the reason being is you make it more pronounced, so your final piece will look much more full and rich and beautiful when we do it that way. If you just do it in its own color, see if I can show you it that way. We'll do one of each and you'll see what I mean, I think. So if I just do a red, I'm just pulling this round, and there's my coil. I'm going to uncoil as I always do, and then I'm going to recoil just to make it a bit more fluid. You see what I'm doing? So if I do that, that makes it a bigger coil. It makes it more beautiful, more pronounced. It's much prettier. Let's just go in with that one for the time being. Now, if I place this in to here, let's just say I'm going to place it onto that one, okay? You'll get that tone and that color, but it won't be as rich. If I then put together a white and a red and I glue it just about there. Barry Manilow is on the prowl. What are you doing, Barry? So I've glued those two together, my ends are tied, and then you can choose to have the white on the inside or the white on the outside. I always go for the white on the outside so that I've got that depth of color. And if you think if you've got a white base, that color is going to bounce off the white, and that's what you're looking for. If I put the white in the middle, it's only got the outside edge and it won't play with the light as much. If I've got the color in the middle and the white on the outside, that bounce will hit. So I always do it from the inside. So again, I'm just coiling. So same thing. just to get that round. And then I'm going to let go, and that's a beautiful coil. It's a double coil, so we can now see those colors coming through. You can see the difference straight away. If I cut that off and I hold that in my palm and then take the red one, you can already see why one is much fuller. I can hold that up than the other. It's not going to stand up on my fat paw. Hold on. There we go. Okay, so you can see that different there. Hey, son of a. So we've got the lovely Fenny Designs in the comments here, and that is my wonderful friend Son, who I love very much. And Sonova, also an amazing quilling artist, does lots of other stuff. So go check her out. She's a lovely, lovely human being. So I've got my red here and I've got the red and white. So we can see the difference. There's a richness that's losing its tone when I use just the red on its own. And that's why I always use two colors together. It's really important. Sharon, I'm at my daughter's and the cats and mid-zoomers. Can't wait to see some different crafts. I love trying different things. Last week was UV resin. Now, here's the thing. UV resin I've wanted to do for ages. I can't do it. I was, because AC have produced some UV resin and I can't demonstrate it because I'm allergic to UV light. So if any of you remember back in the days when I lost all of my fingernails, it's because of UV light. So unfortunately, it's not something I can ever demonstrate or ever have a go at. So that's unfortunate. What I want to do is start looking at some different crafts from around the world, some that are a little bit more unusual and that we don't see much of, because I think it would be really nice to try different elements and different things, different ways of playing that we wouldn't necessarily normally do, because I love card making very much, but I think there are so many different things we can have a go at. And as I've said to you guys many times before, you're probably just an attempt away from your perfect craft and something that you absolutely shine at, because we all have that one thing that we are just, it just is easy for us, you know. Some of us are better at other things. We have those moments where we just go, you know, this is my thing. I fit this craft. And I want to explore different crafts so that we can all have a go at reaching our greatest potential. I'm just going to place that in. So that's now glued into place and everything is seated. So I've got that beautiful white and red difference. If I'm just using the red and I place this next to it, you'll see against the white background, I'm losing, it becomes naked. Okay, you want that difference, you want that point of interest in your work because aesthetically it's important. So now that I've got that, I'm going to come in with some loops, and this is just to show you guys how to do the loops. I know lots of you already know it, but it's a multi-loop, so we're not just working with one color, but we're working with two. Remember it well, your black finger covers. You're saying that very, very politely, Linda Wilson. Yeah, it was a year I lost every single fingernail. And if I go anywhere near UV light, within about 5 minutes, I get black blisters all over my hands instantly. So it's not something I can ever demonstrate. I would still do it, but of course it doesn't look very nice on the telly box when you've got big black blisters. So we're not doing it. Now, I've got my pink here. It doesn't matter what color I'm using, but I'm going to multi-loop. What I'll do is I'm going to do this as a triple multi-loop. So I'll do the white, then I've got the pink, and then I'll go in for that soft candy pink, and we'll get the point of difference there. So just pulling this in and just gluing it. So now all three strands are glued together. That's going to give me a nice holding point. It's going to make things easier for me. So once I've got them, I'm holding all three. Let me make sure I'm in vision for you. So we're going to turn this round so it's looped. Just hold it. Okay, so you've got a loop. Nothing fancy. We can all do that, right? And then I'm going to hold it at the bottom of the loop. Take the first color, so my light pink, my candy pink, and pull it. Can you see that moving? I'm trying to get it in a good spot. Just there. Then I'm going to bring in this one. You can see them pulling together. And they're so pretty and delicate and beautiful. And you've got these multicolors. My hand ain't the best way of showing you this. Let me try and, if I move this camera, there's a good chance it's going to try and do things, but we'll go there. Can you see? So really pretty, really beautiful multi-loops. Multi-loops are going to be really important visually, and you can add in as many strips as you want. So you could do a multi-loop with 10 pieces of cardstock or 10 pieces of quilling paper, and they look beautiful. The more you do, the more unwieldy it becomes though. So you kind of have to get the knack of doing it. I'm going to pull the white strip back, then the darker pink, and then my candy pink. So I'm separating them. The 3 that are already stuck together are my base points. So they're sitting at the other side. Add a tiny amount of PVA. Push. PVA. Push. PVA. And then I'm going to take that and I'm just going to hold. Make sure they're about equal and push. And that's going to give me my perfect multi-loop. So they're really simple to do, but they're very, very effective visually. And it's a really sort of strong impact. What we're looking for always with quilling, and I'll go into this in a second and explain it more. Let me get this one down. So I'm just going to put little dots of glue there, and I'm just going to place this one in here. Now, I'm not worried about following the lines. You absolutely can. It's your template. You can do what you like with it. So one of the things that's really important when we're quilling, and it's one of the things that makes my teeth itch when I look at quilling, is this lack of color. And it's because, you know, it's a natural part of quilling. We're looking at the top of a piece of paper, and it's just, you know, this tiny, tiny little sliver of color here, because we're not looking at the full piece, we're looking at that, and that's what we see. So consequently, quilling can look very naked very fast, and it's sparse. It doesn't look pretty. It's got this kind of naked feel. Now, often when you see photographs, they will have been manipulated by holding it at an angle, so you're getting that color blast. And that's fine, but if you try and put it on a wall and you're looking at it, it'll have this really naked feel to it. It makes my teeth feel funny. You can see it's bitty. So we're trying to avoid that. What we're trying to do is impact of color. So we're using those thicker strips because that gives us more bounce onto the white below it. Now, the other thing that we then do is go in by using the white and the color, because those two differences together, where we've got the coil here and you see it coming through, that's going to give you a really nice blend, but it's also going to power that color that's on the inside, because the color that you've got here is hitting the white below it when the light sort of refracts through it, and you're getting that bounce back of color. And that's what we're looking for, that fullness. It's a richness that comes through it. So it's really important to have a go at trying to use multicolors rather than just using one color. It's easier when you start maybe to go in just with one strip, but I don't teach that way, and I wouldn't teach that way, because I think you'll get to the end of your piece and go, yeah, I'm not real pleased with that. It doesn't look great. And that's what we want to avoid, because we want to feel like we've achieved from the very beginning, of course. So I will always tell you to try and do 2 colors at once. That'd be something that I teach as I go through. And I will also try and teach you to use more than 1 color, more than 2 colors. So white and other colors as well. The more we bring in, the more colorful it is, and you get that compact sense of color that you're lacking if you do, if you're just using those little pieces. It'll look naked, and we don't want that. I did a piece the other day. I love one. It's just behind me. And again, it's utilizing space in the best way that you can. One of the things that I want to get on to doing when we come live with Hobby Maker, I think I'm on the 24th of February, somewhere around there, with Cut by Hand. I'm going to start teaching you to do domes, and they're beautiful. They really do have impact with color. So we're going to look at doing quilled domes. We're going to look at various different techniques for bringing that together, and we'll have different designs for it. On a really exciting note, which I'll tell you all here. So basically, when I'm putting the kits together, the most expensive part of the kit, both for me and therefore that goes on for you as well, is the stamp. The stamps are really really sort of expensive. Sorry, so it costs me, I think by the end of it, I'm looking at about 8-9 quid for a stamp, and then I have to put that cost onto you guys. It has to be paid for somewhere in that sense. And I've kept everything as low as I can as far as the quilling kits are concerned, because obviously I don't feel like we should all pay a fortune to craft. But what I've decided to do, and what I've done, is I've invested in a printer, and I'm going to start doing printed sheets. And so you'll get more designs in each kit, and you'll get multiple of them, and you'll have a free angel policy, so you can photocopy them and do whatever you want with them as well. It'll give you much more room for growth, and it'll give us a much quicker learning base, because rather than having one template per month, you'll actually have a few more to go at, which I think is really important for learning and for progressing. So we're going to do that. So I am going to start doing the stamps. I am going to start doing printed designs. Now, what that means is, as I'm doing them with the website for Cut by Hand, I'm going to start putting templates on there for digital downloads. So you can do some straight from home, which won't be in the kits. They'll be separate. So they'll just be exclusive to the Cut by Hand website. You can just print them off at your will. So we're going to do some of those as well. And it's just about getting it so that it's affordable for you guys and affordable for me as well, because obviously there's a fee that you pay when you're on the television shows. Hello, Lorraine. Are you okay? Lovely. Had a nice chat with Lorraine yesterday. So you've got all of these, you know, different elements. When you're building the kits and putting it onto the television, you've got different costs. So I want to keep that as low for everybody as possible. So that's how I'm going to do it going forward. I hope that's okay with everybody. And if any of you have got any ideas, holler at me, because it's always nice to have different viewpoints. So we're going to do a couple more loops. Now, as you can see in here, I've got some tiny little loops that are just on their own. This is the only exception to the rule where I'll say do it with one color and not two. You can do it with one color, with two colors, of course. Sometimes what we want to do is fill the space, but disguise the space. So we fill it with white, and that way those little pieces in between where we've got the tiny little area, I don't just want it to be a plain white space, it will look naked. I want to fill it, but I want to fill it with white. And so I'm just going to do a tiny white coil for that. Again, take your needle tool, and we're just going to bend that round and roll. You can always use your thumb to just push that together so you're not going off kilter, because it does sometimes have a mind of its own. So I've got that now. I'm just going to roll it between my thumb and my finger. That's going to tighten that coil and keep it in place. And now that I've got that, I can take my tweezers, and I usually put the tweezer on the inside of the coil rather than trying to get hold of just one little flap of paper. Stick a bit of PVA around here. And then I'm just going to go in and I'm going to follow the course of that coil. Put it in, press and hold, and just push. And again, 40 seconds for your PVA to become its tackiest. So when you're holding PVA, one of the problems that we've got is a lot of the PVA on the marketplace is, of course, heavily watered down. That makes it cheaper for suppliers to supply it to you. We can use double the amount of PVA, and we can give you double the amount of PVA for half the cost, if that makes sense. So if I use something that's really watery, you're still paying the same price for it. I'm getting it super cheap because I've diluted it. I use a PVA concentrate, which is very, very thick, so it dries very quickly. And it's one of the things that I think is really important with quilling, because you don't want those coils moving too much. And the reason being why it's so important with quilling, if you think in terms of a coil, if it uncoils and it's got PVA on, it's going to spread a line of PVA. So that PVA is going to sort of sweep across. You'll get a glare back from that. You'll see the light hitting the PVA when it's dried. So we want to avoid those things just to give it that nice aesthetic at the end, that lovely finishing point where it's pretty. So that's one of the things that I would say is try and use really high quality PVA. Make sure you're not giving yourself things that are going to go wrong just for the sake of going wrong. It's not worth it. So we've got a couple more loops here. I'll do 2 more loops and then I will do a coil. Let's go in with the light pink, and I'll just do it in these tones so we can start to see the difference in colors. It's a little bit like a stained glass window, isn't it? If you think in terms of when light hits a stained glass window, you get that color. That's kind of what we're trying to achieve. So just putting that here, rolling it round. Push. I always take it off at about that point and then roll to where I want it to be. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing loops here. I think we'll do this one for this. So I've got it, and hold the tails and let go of it and just let it breathe. If your coil isn't perfect, uncoil it, recoil it, let that paper be manipulated. By uncoiling it and then recoiling it with your hands, you're just forming it into place, but it's not as tight as it would be around the needle. So you get this beautiful open shape. And the coil is just that little bit more, it's prettier. So let's take that off. Put my tweezers. I'm going to hold the tail and the coil together. You see that? One of the things I'll also teach you going down the line are vortex coils. They're absolutely beautiful. So we'll do some of those. You need a different tool to do a vortex coil. So I'll bring those in at some point. And following my tail, place this in, push down, and just let that sit. Push and hold. So now your coils are starting to form. So I'm just going to put in some little loops here, and you'll see this coming round. And this is all we're doing for it. It's a similar technique. One of the best ways of learning, of course, is repetition. And so by the time you've got to the end of doing this, you will have fully learned how to do your coils, fully learned how to do your loops, and hopefully fully learned how to do your outlining, which we did at the beginning. Those are your foundations. That's your fundamentals. So once you've got those in place, then we're really starting to go forward. And as I've said before, I don't do traditional quilling. If traditional quilling is what you want, I'm not really the person to learn from. I do some traditional quilling occasionally, but it's not what I rely on, depend on, or tend to do. So I'm not really your best ally for that. That's a very specific type of quilling. I like to do modern stuff. I like color. I like those pops of color. I like it to be a little bit more bold. And that's just kind of my style, I suppose. So we're going to utilize those colors. So popping this in, little bits of glue. I need to get a jumper, don't I, that I wear when I'm on here that just says glue is sticky across the front of it. I think it's going to be on my gravestone. Right. So popping this in. So the first thing I'm going to do is place it, make sure it fits. And I'm always going to do that first. Before I ever put adhesive towards anything, I'm just going to make sure it slots in that place. That means I've got some breathing space. If it's too big, I can start to cut off some of the end and make it smaller as I go. You might have to add in a little bit more PVA, but no harm, no foul. But it just means I know where I'm going. So I'm going to take this one. And I know that my next one's going to need to be a little bit smaller than this. I was a little bit bold on colour. And I'll pop this in. Now, if I was going from scratch here, I would be utilising 3 colours, not 2. And I think the difference is much prettier when you've got those tones there coming through. So it's up to you what you do. It's about practicing. I would say the best thing you can do is have more than one go. So if you're going to do this, quill it a few times and champion it. So again, using my white and my pink, gluing them together. How about I cut my hand apron? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Although that would mean, you know, me actually doing something that's grown up, which, look, see, you put me off now because I get easily waylaid. I'll cut my hand apron. That would mean I'm actually protecting my clothes and doing the right thing, right? That's a scary thought. Ah, there's my daddy. Good morning, Ruby Doo. I love you too. How you doing? Everybody, that is John Bagshaw. That's my lovely daddy, and he is the best human in the world and my absolute hero. Right, I'm going to take this. I've got my loop. I've got it folded. I've got my spot here. Now this, I've still got some length here that's slightly longer. So I'm going to cut that off. Right up to that line. Pull back, PVA, push forward, PVA, push forward, pinch. Okay, and that's going to give me that really lovely loop. Can you all see it? There we go. Just there. I'm just getting used to this overhead camera. It's not the best camera in the world. However, it has managed to zoom in quite far, so I'm not going to complain. So taking this here, and I'm just going to hold and slot that in, push it between, let it drop, and push. So it's always about manipulating. Jill, it would also add another visual brand identity to your live stream. It absolutely would, but that would mean organizing things. And as we all know, that's not my strongest point in the world. But yeah, one day I'll get there. If you want, I've just found that little coil that I just made a mistake with a minute ago. If you want to add in some color, I think white space is really important. I think it lets things breathe. However, it's not the be all and end all. And I know some people have very different styles to me. If you want to start adding mini color loops into those little spots, those little coils, you can absolutely do that. So just place that in and place that on and give it a little push. And that's going to go there. So we're starting to fill out. You can see that fullness. If I lift this so that you up, so that you can see it on camera. Can you see the fullness, the colors coming through? You can start to see it. And what I don't have is that naked sense. I've got the full, it's just this quality of beefing things out by having those multiple loops, those multiple coils. So I'm not just using white, or I'm not just using a color. I'm actually adding always white to a color, and I do that pretty much predominantly for everything. Just bear with 1 second, my camera's going to follow me. Hold on, I saw my foam board a second ago. So when we're looking at doing something that is full, this is what I'm talking about, where you have that expansive nature of color. Now, in here, you'll see an awful lot. So these coils have white around the outside of them. My domes are multicolored. My flowers have white and the color. We're constantly picking in. Here's my multi-loops that we've just been doing. So you've got the triple colors and the white. So by doing that, what I get is this beautiful tone of color. So here, look, where you've got the florals coming through, you've got that really strong sense of color. And this is on that foam board I was telling you about, okay? So it's thick and it's not allowing a bending point. Now I can still frame it, everything works just as well, but it gives me that beautiful bending point. And this is where we're going to be getting to. So some way down the line, as we start going through all of the different points and tutorials of quilling, we will get to that stage where we are, I'm just going to remove that because we're done on that, where we can do those bigger pictures, those fuller pictures. And my aim is to have a good majority of you literally creating artwork and selling it, because I love crafts for a hobby, but sometimes we want those crafts to pay for themselves. And there's nothing that states that you guys can't be designing your own stuff and doing your own stuff. And one of the other things, now that I've got this up and running, one of the things that I can do is screen share. So I can show you my screen. And what we'll do at some point going down is I'll start to teach you in Illustrator or GIMP or one of those things, how to produce your own templates, how to produce your own artwork, so you can get going with that as well. So you can start doing, you know, letters and typography. So basically what I want to do essentially is hand you all a baton that says, now I can make custom pieces, I can do this, that, and the other, because why the hell not, right? We should all be able to make a living. And so if I can hand that over to you, I think that would be, you know, I think that's where we should be with craft. It shouldn't be a case of, well, I can do it and I can show you little snippets so that you can have a go. I think we should all have an open forum of being able to produce, earn, and do all of those things. So I'm going to hand all of those batons to you, but you have to go through a process of being taught, unfortunately. Michaela, did you just see your love? You did just see your love. Let me add this in. There you go. Can you see it? There you go. Cute, right? It's so pretty. I love colors. So for this one, for instance, and again, talking the color theory, it's really important. We went with the rainbow. So Richard of York, hold on, of York gave battle in. So we moved through the rainbow to get that whole colorway. So you start to think in terms of color theory. Color theory, really, really important for all of the things that you do. And again, we'll do all of this. We'll go through everything. And so at the end of it, you feel like you've got a hold of it, really, and that it's yours. because it's really important when you're paying for kits and stuff that you're actually learning something and not just producing. What I don't want is for you to go, well, I can do this, but I can't do anything else. I want you to be able to go, well, now I can quill. And that's so important. I say it again, quilling is the fundamental of all crafting. It is literally where you learn to manipulate paper, where you learn your current color theory, and where you learn to fill in white space and then let white space breathe as well. It's one of the most important, essential crafts, and I stand by that, and I will till the day I die. So I am going to hand that baton to you guys. Right, I'm going to get going and finish my coffee and do the bits and bats. I need to post out some stuff to you guys. Thank you so much for everybody who bought yesterday when I launched the website. That was incredibly humbling. I'm going to get those out to you as soon as possible. So I will speak to you all soon. Bob me a message if you need anything. Thank you for joining. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye, guys. Bye.